afternoon. Can you hear me all? It's a good thing that I'm the second speaker after lunch. So you're all awake. And the last one before the break. This morning, we have all heard from different speakers and experts how Sigmafine can help your enterprise in terms of data collection, quality checks, or reconciliation. And we have heard from 2 operating companies and from PIMSoft. I'm going to present to you a different angle. First of all, my company deals in refinery automation. And if you are all in the oil and gas industry, especially downstream, you have heard of a term on-site and off-site. Now, on-site basically relates to process units, and off-site relates to everything else. Tank farm, blending, optimization, reconciliation mass, and my company specializes in consulting off-site automation. So I'm coming to you as a consultant. I have a different perspective. And perspective is this. All you have heard is after effects. Customer already have a Sigmafine, they already have a value of it. But what happens before that? As a consultant, I go to a customer. And their question is, what can we do? Recently, my company was retained by Oil Corporation with the 10 refineries. And their objective was, we know we are losing money. You tell us where are we losing and what can we do. So I'm not going to give you any technology as such. I'm just going to go to the case study and saying what was in the customer's mind and what the objectives are. But before that, I'll give you a little bit of background between the data and process. So in this presentation, we're going to talk about concept and business process collaboration. How these two fit together. You already heard all of the concept earlier, but I'm going to touch from different angle. Types of data, collection and management. How does it go from data management to digital transformation? And what are the factors affecting the enterprise bottom line? And I'll give you a case study, mostly from downstream oil refining and a success story. So the next slide is that every enterprise is supported by 2 pillars, data and process. And they sit on the top of infrastructure. Now, data and process, no matter what industry you take, manufacturing, service, finance, everything, these are the 2 pillars which support any enterprise. They sit on infrastructure, and data and process are supplementing and complementing each other. It's like a marriage. One cannot live without the other. Because process generates the data, and data controls the process. We heard this morning. And you cannot take any pillar out and say the enterprise will survive. It will not. Now, you may be thinking in terms of process industry, that how does data and process relate? You all know. Think of another non-process industry. And yesterday, I was watching TV and I'm watching Netflix. The question came to my mind, how does Netflix, different industry, different business, connect this data and process? Now, give you a very simple thought behind it. What is the infrastructure? The infrastructure is production of TV series, movies, and all the hardware and software. What is the process? To streamline the movies and the TV shows. Where does the data come from? Now, when you watch a movie, have you noticed that give you, because of your interest in other movie, they are projecting this one. Gives you rating, gives you user feedback. What do they use the data for? They go back and saying, what is the favorite shows that users like to see? And they go back and do the business. So they are connected together. Take any industry, for example. They always have these 2 pillars which support the business. Now, since we are talking about oil and gas and offsite for particular, let's look at that industry. Now, we have data coming from tank form, from blending, from oil movement, reconciliation, you name it. And that data, that process generates the data. And the data is fed back to the process to control it. So we have a process governing data or generating data and data controlling process. And this process is always real time, sometimes offsite, but this is always a marriage behind that. So how is data collected? We talk about data. How is data collected in process industry? Now, we have three types of data. Actually, 4 types. The static data. The static data is something that you configure your hardware, your field equipments, and they don't change over time. You are configuring a tank form or a tank, the tank size, the tank diameter, the level control, everything is all fixed. Now, that data is residing in DCS, PLC, or some of the applications. Now it goes to the real-time data. You are controlling it. Now every time you control, you get the signal from sensors, flow meters, and everything that needed to control the process. Now that data is on the time basis. You may be scaling every second, every minute, and it doesn't change over time. The number doesn't change over time. It remains the same. But what changes, that data goes back to the server and is historized. And when it is historized, that history of the data keep on changing with time. And if you take a simple case of one single tank in a refinery, you have maybe 20, 30, 40 points of a single tank, and they are collected every minute. Multiply that by 3600 for an hour, multiply by 24 hours, multiply 365 days. You come up with a number, that's only one tank. If you have 300 tanks in a refinery, that number goes very high. And this all data is stored in the database. So what do you do with the data? It just sits there? No, you can do a lot. You can do prediction, you can do simulation, you can calculate KPI. And we all have seen this morning, while all the speakers, that data have a value. It can be used to increase your profitability. And I have worked in the refinery where they collect the data, but they don't do anything with it. And this is the whole purpose of this session and earlier session, say data should not be ignored. So if you look at the generating a data set over time, you have initial setup and then you have static configuration data, which remains the same no matter what number is over time. Same thing, real-time data, which is a little bit more than the configuration, but historical data, computational data increases tremendously over time. It has no bound. Now, we have learned 3 words this morning, 3 concepts: management, transformation, and analytics. Now, sometime in my experience, the industry or people in industries are confused. They sort of mix together data management, transformation, analytics, but it has a separate purpose of each. Now, data management works only with the database, data collection, data cleaning up, data checks. And it defines it, discovers it, collects it, validates it, and manages databases. Okay. But when you go to digital transformation, you heard the message today by everybody that it's important that how you use the data. And this is where you align, optimize people and processes. Because now people are involved in this thing to be able to use the data effectively for their purpose, their jobs, and the corporation as a whole or enterprise as a whole. But even if we do, what happens? Then the term comes data analytics. Data analytics sometimes give you a window into data, and you have seen examples this morning, that it gives you a window of visualizing the data. How well your process is doing, how well your controls are doing. It tracks the performance of no matter what you're tracking. Reconcile the data, correct data. So all the 3 processes have to be together as a part of data transformation, analytics, and management. in a refining, especially downstream, there are 4 aspects that the business is concerned about. First, how to manage infrastructure. Now, when I talk about infrastructure, it includes everything, not the software, but the hardware, like a field equipment, pumps, tanks, whatever you name it. How do you manage it? The second control manufacturing. How do you control your manufacturing? It could be making a production, blending products. It may be to transferring from one tank to another. The third comes optimization. Now, you have produced gasoline, diesel, fuel, whatever it is, but are they produced in an optimal way? Are you giving away qualities? This is where third aspect comes. You have to optimize your production. Now, last comes hydrocarbon management. This is what we talked about this morning. Then, how do you reconcile hydrocarbons? Now, the next slide will show you what that all 3 means. Now, in terms of profitability, the effectiveness goes from right to left in terms of reconciliation of hydrocarbon to the infrastructure. Efficiency goes from left to right. It means the better control, better optimization, better reconciliation, and then the profitability goes in the same order. I have come across again and again in my 30 years of experience, when I go to a refinery to consult, I ask them 2 questions. He says, how effective your infrastructure is? And I explain what infrastructure means. It means everything that you have to operate your plant. They say very effective. I say, okay. How efficient is operation is? That means how well you do reconciliation, how well you do control, how well you optimize it. They say very efficiently. I said, okay, fine. Can you tell me out of a 10 refineries you have, which refinery is better than yours? Quantitatively. I say, I don't know. I said, well, isn't it a method why you can say, well, my refinery is 10, other refinery is 12. Isn't it benchmarking of your entire operation in terms of infrastructure, in terms of your efficiency? There is none, believe it or not. There is no benchmarking methodology available in the industry today where we can say the operation of one refinery better than others. Not anymore. Luckily, our company had developed methodology where we can benchmark up to the last point within 10% accuracy. And if you're interested, just go to the website and you will download the paper that we have published on this area. So, moving on. So, the consultation we did for 10 refineries, 10 refineries had about 150 to 450,000 barrels per day. And they were averaging an oil loss of 1.2, 1.5%. Now remember, industry average is 0.4 to 0.6%. And at times, they were even showing positive mass gains. Now we are chemical engineers. Do you think a refinery or any plant can gain a mass? No, right? It's always lost. The volume is gained. It's never lost. So if they are showing positive mass gains, then something is wrong somewhere. Okay, and we'll come to that point. So refinery had very reasonable automation of infrastructure, tank gauging system, oil movements. But data management, digital transformation, and data reconciliation was none, or at very low level. Now, you will be surprised. What am I talking about? Which oil corporation I'm talking? I'm not going to give you the name, but this is Modern Oil Corporation. And when refineries have that kind of infrastructure and that kind of operation, you start wondering that where the value is. Now, then we did another analysis. I said, what is the potential? So, if we can reduce 25% in the oil loss, it means we take a half sigma. Usually, industry standard is 1 sigma, which is 33%. But it's okay, we'll take a half sigma, a little more, 25% reduction. If we do 25% reduction in the oil loss, they come with refinery benefits of $1 to $8.5 million per year, per refinery. Now, that can outweigh any soft or hard investment. Now, what better a business can be than this? Okay, this is cutting into profit margin of a refinery. So, this is the 1 year monthly average for one of the refinery. Now, if you look at this chart, now There's a couple of points that you will notice. First of all, it can be only one thing, either volume gain or mass loss. It cannot be a combination of two, because it's not the same scale, right? So look at the curve, and half of the time is showing positive, half of the time showing negative. And if it's showing negative, it's going as high as 1.2%, and if it is positive, it's going 2.3, 0.1, 0.2. So just by looking at this curve, you can immediately realize that this refinery, and this is one of the 10 refineries, has something wrong. And this is where they wanted us to tell them what is wrong, how to correct it. So the next step, we looked at it. It's okay. So this is all in the balancing. Oil loss is in the balancing. Now when you talk the balancing, the three areas you look at it. Fence line balancing, or sometimes it's called boundary balancing, unit balancing, and intertransfer. Now, some of the refineries, or when we started, the management told us, we want to look at only the fence line balancing, the boundary balancing. Question was why? He says, well, when we are getting orders from the supplier, or we are dispatching to the customer, we have mismatch. We are sending more or getting less, so we are losing in terms of financial. And at one point, the finance manager of one of the refinery told me, then a single day he lost $5 million because it did not match. Now, when I asked him, then okay, you can go back to the customer supplier. He said, no, it becomes a legal issue. So he said, okay, but let's look at it more. Where the problem is coming? The problem is in the measurement. The measurement of the transfers, the measurement unit balancing. Now, each is a different topic by itself, and I don't have enough time to discuss all these things, but give you a short. Let's talk about unit balancing. Now, you have a unit out of which one stream goes to a tank, right? The tank does not have a flow meter. The unit has a flow meter, of course. Now, the accountant is balancing the two. They want to match what is coming out of the unit and what is going into the tank. Now, there is a mismatch. You can do all the calculations, it's a mismatch. The problem is, where is the error? Is it the tank gauging system or is it the meter? Now, which is more serious? The meter is more serious. Why? What happens is that each unit, each control has a set point, and it works on the measurement of the flow. If the measurement of the flow is wrong, the control system is going to adjust it, thinking that I'm measuring less or more and I have to change my set point. Now, this is not true, because that's a false alarm, false value. So, the unit may be producing more pseudo or less. So, the unit balancing is a very important factor in overall mass balancing. And this is where Sigmafine does have an advantage, where it can match the flow meter versus the tank gauging system. The oil movement, the order movement, when you transfer from one tank to another, you know what is gone out of the tank and you know what is gone into the tank. What if there is a mismatch? The mismatch could be because the level gauges are not working correctly, or the operator did not transfer in time. Now, how does the oil movement works? You set up a oil movement and he says, okay, go, and they have to tell to the field operator to start the pump. Now, once they start the pump, there is a time lag by the time operator starts. So, there is a time gap is another factor. So, all this have to be looked together as a complete system to benefit the refinery or enterprise in terms of oil loss. So during the problem discovery phase, we revealed that it was a poor data management and or integration. There was not commonality between database from different vendors. Tank gauging was supplied by different vendor, oil moving was supplied by different vendor. They had own proprietary database. They would not talk to each other. If it did, it required multiple interfaces by each vendor to be able to go out in the system. Lack of data quality checks. Lack of training to use data effectively, efficiently. Operations were manually managed and later entered on paper. So the accountant would balance it on each month after the month was finished. It will take about 2 to 3 weeks, 3 accountants to make a monthly balance. They have to go manually to each tank, measure the level, go back to the database, and look at it. Now, 2 to 3 weeks. Management was, and this is not something happening now, it was happening years and years. They had the lack of management interest and ignorance of potential benefits from reduction. Now, when we are looking at this project, one refinery overseas, part of the same oil corporation, they say we're going to solve this problem better. It's okay. So what they did, they organized business rules, procedures, and involved about 10 different departments, and from each department, a couple of people. And they say we're going to make a balance of previous day in 1 hour, from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. They went through the entire 9 years. And the first day did on the dot 9 o'clock, perfect balance. Next day it went 1 hour 2 minutes. Third day 1 hour 5 minutes. The whole week went. The second week it went 1.5 hours. After third week it became history. Because too much work, too many people involved, too much data flow, information. So we told them, why do you work hard when you can work smart? And how do you work smart? Implement the systems. So what did we implement? So we recognized solutions. He said, implement tank inventory management systems. Now I said before, they already had a tank gauging system, but there was no inventory system. So they had to go to a screen, look at the level, calculate it by hand, and then find the inventory. So that was the first solution. Oil movement management systems. Now, there are 2 layers of oil movement management system, how to be familiar. One is the monitoring and another control. Now, what monitoring means that you start a volume and do manual start of the pump and valves and everything. So it means it still requires a manual entry. It did better than the no control at all or no monitoring at all, but it did not achieve the ultimate goal because again there was a manual entry involved. A mass reconciliation software like a Sigmafine. Then the management and digital transformation. We integrate database from all the sources, bring a link, make a link so all database can talk to each other. Implement data quality checks in real time, and that is that Sigmafine can accomplish that very easily. Develop business rules and procedures. Daily hydrocarbon management improve the quality of data, and we have seen this. We have heard this, that yes, you can do daily balances online, automated, and people training. Now, in my experience, the training is the last thing that management really concerned about. And that's a big loss. In fact, I talked to some of you this morning, why training is ignored and not given importance. I don't know. Because the people move, the people change their jobs, they go from different department to different, they have to start learning all over again. So people training is very important for any success. So now, then we talk about data analytics. Now data management, digital transformation has no meaning until we can look at the data itself. Look at the data in a window that we can understand, relate to it. And that's where data analytics come to picture. It gives an insight into business processes to help make decisions. And it should be useful and conditioned for the purpose. There should not be any pretty Excel chart or tables. It should be more meaningful. Give you some example. Now, in oil movement, sometimes the KPI is measured in terms of number of movements per day. Now, these are 6 refineries that we consulted, and you can see the pattern of transfers. Now, these transfers are not from tank to tank. It could be from different 13 areas, source and destination. So, you can see how the KPI is scattered all over the place. In a typical refinery, which is about 300 to 400,000 barrels per day, the number of transfer can go anywhere to 100 to 150 per day. It's a lot of transfer. And if you have to do manually, you can imagine the quality of data and management problems. Yeah. So final success story. They were able to integrate the databases, build the interface between the data from different sources, almost real time. Data loss was reconciled on daily basis rather than monthly basis using a tool like Sigmafine. New business rules and procedures were implemented, information flow, data quality checks, and data reconciliation. And they were able to achieve significant reduction in oil loss, which we say half a sigma or 1 sigma. So the benefits were immediately realized. Operators, engineers, and accountants were given extensive training in using the system. So in summary, refinery operation require and generates a huge amount of data for their effective and efficient executions. Sources of data varies from vendors, formats, openness, interfaces, integration, and require for a very coherent system. Lack of effective and efficient data governance can affect your operation and enterprise bottom line severely. Data availability in real time and historical archival is a must for business decision analysis, analytics, and dashboard application across the enterprise. Thank you.